Hello and welcome back to Bristol News, and for the last couple of weeks we've been getting up close and personal with the 13 mayoral candidates, and I shouldn't normally be in this seat. It should be Steve Fevre having a chat, but tonight Tony Britt was supposed to be here, but for whatever reason he's not shown up. So Steve joins me in the studio now, where we're going to have a chat about, first of all, Tony Britt.
Yeah, I thought maybe I was going to be standing actually.
You could always stand for that. I must ask this, have you ever thought about it?
I certainly have, yeah, but maybe not this time round, probably a bit late for that. Yeah, Tony, we don't know where he is, we don't know where he's gone, but we saw him, of course, in all his splendour last night and at the hustings, and interesting man in many ways, complete outsider. I think he'd be the first to admit that. In fact, he has said at some stages that he's maybe a bit out of his depth with this, but he's very passionate, and probably best to introduce him by having a look at that opening statement from last night. And children feature large. Doing the right thing by the children is one of his key policies. So here's what he said in his opening statement, Chris.
Hello, my name's Tony Britt. I want to champion your children. I want to give them a future. Bring a legacy pot together so we can guarantee that our young adults will never have to pay for their student fees. I also want to champion both parents to see their children. David Cameron passed a law that both parents should have influence in bringing up their children. But if you're poor, you've got no chance, and the courts is one-sided. Also, the NHS, surely we can come up ideals.
Thanks, Tony.
The buzzer going there, Steve.
We were never to know, were we?
No, never to know.
We'd hope to pin that one down tonight, but we don't know where he is.
So he has some big ideas, doesn't he? He talked about these last night.
He's got some gigantic ideas. I don't know whether he should be standing for mayor going on Dragon's Den. There's one in particular, though, that we're going to hear. Well, let me rephrase that. We're not going to hear, because he said it's such a big brainwave, he doesn't really want anybody else nicking it. He's going to take it to the university. But here's what we gleaned last night about this big idea.
I don't really want to give the ideal away. I really would like to go to the college up on top of Park Street and say I've got a brainwave, and hopefully that brainwave will bring a legacy to our children's future, so they don't have to pay for their education, they don't have to campaign for youth projects, and it'll be if we look after our children and show them that we love them, yeah, we'll become a pebble in a pond. Other cities within England would do the same thing. And we will gain two things. One, we will be looking after our children and young adults. And two, the world, the merchants of the world will say, oh, that's the city to go to look after our children. But I don't want to give too much away about my brainwave, because I want to give it to the college.
He certainly gained some laughs in the room.
He knows how to tease, doesn't he?
The big idea, I'm so intrigued as to what that might be. He's a man of culture, though, isn't he, Tony Britt?
He's a man of culture. He wants a lot of culture to come to the city, from what he said again last night. In fact, fair to say, he's a bit of an artist himself. Have a look at this.
I'm already an artist. I carve pictures, and I find rubbish and turn them into a picture. Like take the bits out of the back of a television and turn it into a church. Personally, I would like to invite all cultures to the city centre, 26 weeks of the year, for over 4 years, and say to them, right, entertain the city, educate the city, tell the city who you are, why you pray to a particular thing, and why do you do what you do. Me and Phil Morris tried to well, we did. We made a film on all the different graffiti within Easton, Lawrence Hill and Barton Hill, and we showed it at the Forum. And we wanted to champion the Lawrence Hill roundabout and get the youngsters from the schools and clubs in the local area to do their own thing on the wall. You've got to remember, a piece of art is brilliant to the beholder who creates it. And this is the atmosphere we wanted to create with our local schools. But because of red tape, we're not allowed to do it.
There's the bell again, yeah. Tony is an independent. He's from Redfield. He's born in Knoll West, and he's had his problems over the last few years. Marriage, he was out on the street. He's living on benefits, but he's a real man, and I think that's what the democracy of this whole thing is about. That anybody can stand, get their 500 quid in, and stand as mayor, and why not?
Okay, so Tony didn't turn up tonight for his head-to-head. The only one so far who hasn't, so sorry about that, Tony. You missed your slot. But let's now go through some of the other candidates that we've had in the studio. We've had them all through. And of course, we've got some big ones coming up next week ahead of the election itself. Let's first of all start with just a few sentences, I suppose, Steve, just summing up your thoughts on them. So Tom Baldwin was first.
Yeah, interesting just to run through, because the beauty of what we've done, Chris, is the personality and the policies. It's what you're buying into. It's this figurehead that you're going to have. We see in all the hustings the actual policies. Tom Baldwin, he's been around for a while. He stood last time round as well, and he's come really on one particular issue, and that is anti-austerity. He's against the cuts. He stands up. He's a trade unionist and socialist coalition. And a very, very passionate man. He knows what he wants. He knows that he's not going to win this race, but again, he can use this to get his point across.
So next up, it was Charles Lucas for the Conservatives.
Yeah, again, interesting character, Charles Lucas for the Conservatives. Sometimes you think that people would kind of think about background and think about how they're going to sort of go down across the city. He's unashamedly big property man, Clifton man, drives a nice big 4x4. He said he arrived in that. Absolutely no shame about that in this city that particularly thinks about cycling and pedestrians. But he says, no, I'm going to appeal right across the board. He's got some strong ideas on housing and all the main issues, and he thinks he's going to have that common appeal that's going to resonate around Bristol.
Yeah, so one of the other interesting ones was Paul Saville, wasn't it? We'll rattle through these quite quickly.
Yeah, Paul Saville, I think a thorn in the side for the current incumbent, and has been. Paul Saville probably best known for some of those meetings of minds with George Ferguson in places like the Bear Pit, where certain words were uttered that caused more of a headline than the actual policies themselves. Again, very driven. He's a guy, he's 30 years old. He's I saw him very nicely dressed up actually last night.
He
for
was,
the hustings,
yeah,
I think,
he was.
with a bit of a change of image. But again, somebody who thinks very, very passionately about people who are perhaps less privileged within the city and wants to get that equality.
And Christine Townsend then, briefly?
Christine Townsend, standing again on one policy, and that basically is to try and draw attention to what she says is the inequality in the school system, particularly the admissions.
Stoney Garnett?
What can you say? Red cap, comedian, known throughout the city. He says they all shout, there he goes, Stoney for mayor. If it's the perhaps popularity count, then he's home and dry.
John Langley.
John Langley, or Johnny Rockhard. We met him, we said, come on, you're the man that's making pornography films in Castle Park. How can you possibly be mayor? He said, that's one part of my job, the mayor's another part of my job, I can divide the two.
Marvin Rees for Labour?
Marvin Rees, we saw him last time round. He was the big opponent, of course, of George Ferguson. This time round, again, according to the bookies, well, he's a slight second favourite, but it is going to be neck and neck. He's a different character from the last time round, perhaps more measured, perhaps, I don't know whether the big Labour Party has had a lot to do with it as far as how he's presenting himself, but it's going to be a close run thing.
Tony Dyer.
Tony Dyer, Tony is an interesting character because, a quiet man in some ways, isn't he? And he's the Green Party, but he hasn't exactly brought the whole Green Party with him. The party themselves officially right behind him, but others are saying, no, hang on a minute, I think George might be the man to back up those green issues. But I'll tell you what, he might be quiet, but he's a big thinker and a big policy man as well, so he might do quite well.
It's a big long list, this. Paul Turner, UKIP.
Paul Turner of UKIP, again, a local man. He's Hot Wells. He's been around the scene. He knows the city, born, brought up here. Perhaps not what people would say would be your typical UKIP candidate, whatever that is. Some people say perhaps you're even more conservative. A quietly spoken man, but again, very passionate in his beliefs.
Now, Mayor Festus. The name just does it for
Mayor
me.
Festus, the name does it really does. Well, there he is, he's a prince, isn't he? His grandfather's a king in Nigeria. And he really a couple of issues that he wants to stand on. He wants to bring back St Paul's Carnival, he wants to bring all the people together, and he wants to push Bristol forward.
Now, we have got two more to come. Kay Barnard for the Lib Dems,
Kay
and
Barnard.
George Ferguson, who is also standing. They're coming up next week. Just a couple of sentences
Just
on
a couple of
those,
sentences. Kay Barnard, again standing as a Liberal Democrat. She's going to be with us on Tuesday. The interesting about her is that she's not 100% convinced by the role of mayor in the first place. So that's one of the questions we'll put into her on Tuesday. Standing for a job that you don't fully believe in. I think she wants a referendum. We'll ask her about that.
Yeah, a very interesting topic, Steve. Thank you very much indeed. A very different programme tonight.
Indeed.
But thanks for the analysis. And you're back Monday when it will be George Ferguson in this seat here.
Going to be a very interesting night.
Cracking interview. Steve, thanks very much
Cheers.
indeed for now. Right, just before we go, just turn to Bristol sports news, and Rovers are looking to get back into the top 3 this weekend when they take on York City. York have already been relegated to the conference, but Darryl Clark is still expecting a tough game.
It's always difficult, and it will be difficult Saturday. York are unbeaten at home in 5 games, although they're relegated, and obviously they're going to have to deal with that as a football club. They're a side that's scored in every home game apart from 1. So we're under no illusions how difficult the game's going to be, and we certainly won't be going down there with the attitude this is a gimme. We'll be going and preparing like we always do.
And City play their final home game of the season when they take on Huddersfield Town at Ashton Gate. With safety confirmed, the Robins head coach sees this as a good opportunity to rotate his squad.
It is, and it's important that you got to remember that the way you manage and the way you have to manage is you have to keep everybody entertained. Do you know what I mean? And they have to feel like that if they're training well, they're going to get their chance. And then you've got to deliver that chance when there's an opportunity to deliver the chance. And people like Alex Pearce, who's been brilliant for us, and it really is a captain, to be honest. To not be in the side has been difficult for him.
There we are, that's Bristol News. Make sure you get in touch with us with any of the stories we've covered. Use the hashtag Bristol News. The Lowdown follows this programme, but for now, from your City TV channel, bye-bye and have a great weekend.